Hello everyone, this is Father Marcin, and with me today is Rob Muirhead, who is our communication person in our parish, and we are here to start our series, video series about Parish 2030, about our feasibility studies and about the concept what was presented to us by urban architects from New York City. And we are so excited about it, and the next 9 weeks we'll be releasing to you videos, one per week, showing you the whole process of where we were and where we are, and what is the concept for the future for Parish 2030. A few weeks ago, I asked Rob to do some statistics, some numbers, like pure numbers, to see where we are and how we are growing or we are declining, and also to look into the situation of our archdiocese and also the situation of the church here in the United States of America. And I asked him to do this. I didn't have any influence on him. Only what I asked him, to go everywhere where you need, get all documentation, all numbers from where you need to get those numbers.
I bothered a lot of people.
Yes, and prepare this for our knowledge, for my knowledge, and also for the knowledge for the whole parish. And today we'll start with those statistics and with those situations where we are, and how are we doing today.
All right, so like Father said, I'm Rob. I'm the leader of communications here in the parish, and I have a journalism background, and I have gone very sort of deep into the numbers internally from the archdiocese, looking at national trends, and sort of the information I have to present today is going to feel like a mixed bag, but I want to just start right off the bat that our parish is growing. Just get the good news right out the gate here. Our parish is actually growing, which is something that we are doing in defiance of state national trends here in the Catholic Church, which is really good news. So I started looking at numbers. I looked at some of the census data numbers from the Archdiocese over the last, 6 to 10 years. I looked at our data. I, made some comparisons. So as a point of reference, right, I don't think it's much of a secret that the Catholic Church, attendance at the Catholic Church is in decline, on a national scale, on an international scale, here in the state. So let's just take us, for example, right? Between 2016 and 2022, our attendance fell by about 45%, which is a lot. It does not feel good, right? The mixed news here, the not great news for the Catholic Church as a whole, is that puts us right in the middle of the pack. There were some parishes that only lost 25 to 30%, which is still not good when you're losing 25, 30% of attendance. There are some parishes that lost 70 to 80%. So 45 puts us right at average. And you're thinking maybe like, well, Rob, you said we were growing. That's a catastrophic fall. It is. So there's a few complicating factors in there, right? By the way, these numbers, this decline is why the Archdiocese as a whole, or one of the contributing factors to why the Archdiocese as a whole, in 2017 first started merging parishes, and then again in the subsequent years. That's why we here in town had 4 parishes merged into 2 in 2017, and then just 4 years later merged into 1. For those of you who were here for the early part of our merger process, I was here. My first day was July 1st, 2021. It was the first official day of our merger, so got thrown right into the deep end of where we're at. Despite all of this, despite where we were at, why the mergers are going on like this, there are some contributing factors. There are some complicating factors, right? So COVID happened. A lot of people stopped coming in COVID, and then they just didn't really come back. A lot of people had been declining for a while, not coming back. So we knew, and under Father Marcin's guidance, we knew that we had to do something different. So we started programmatic changes. We started growing. We started focusing on families, and we started focusing on those who had left the church, reaching out to the unchurched. And I am extremely happy to say that just in the last year alone, right, but this has been trending since about 2021, mid-2022. we've been growing by about 4 to 5% every year. So 4 to 5%, 4 to 5%. We've not made up 100% everyone who has left across the board and left the Catholic faith yet. But I have to say, and I really can't stress this enough, when everyone is in free fall, when you are somewhere where numbers are in free fall, just plateauing, just seeing 0% change, seeing not a negative is incredible. The fact that we are continuing to grow by 4 to 5% every single year is huge. And now I don't want to extrapolate numbers for this year yet, because that's not sort of how this works. But I can say sort of anecdotally, just in the first 2 months of this year, we doubled our rate of new families coming in. So we are seeing we are seeing at least the trends this year of increased rates of growth from the previous years.
Let's tell us numbers, because we are here about numbers.
Absolutely.
Tell us how many people over the weekend, they work with us.
Everybody knows that on an average, so we take the Archdiocese has a census in October, right? So I'll just base on the October numbers. Now there's some, some tweaks to the numbers that can be made here, right? Because some people, there are some parishes who will tweak the numbers and go, hey, everybody show up for the census. There's some that don't. We generally don't, because we want to take like a really good. So, and we also happen to know that, a rough percentage, I don't want to make a direct comparison here, but a lot of our parishioners come every other week. But on an average weekend, let's just take the October numbers. That puts us at a little bit between 1,500 and 1,600 attendees in a single weekend. Right, so one average October weekend, we have between 1,500 and 1,600 people coming physically to Mass. Now, I'm not going to talk about our online viewership, which is anywhere usually around 100 people, 50 to 100 people online.
Live and then
live and then that's live. I'm not going to get into the rewatches or who sticks around and who doesn't. That gets a little into the weeds for the numbers, I think. But for us, about 1,500 to 1,600 people. So for the October count was 1,522. That puts us currently at the 9th most populous parish in terms of attendance for an average weekend. That puts us at number 9. Sort of related to that, we are also not the only parish. We are one of only 3 parishes who offers as many weekend masses as we do, right? We offer 8 masses every weekend. So I know sometimes people come up to me and go, oh, hey, it felt like there wasn't a ton of people. There are so many people coming to Mass. For those of you who were at the town hall meetings talking about the Mass schedule in the first place, you'll remember that the 8 masses every weekend was actually a compromise measure at the time. We had a lot of people, both in the leadership team and the public, saying, well, that seems like a lot for a priest to take on. It's 8 masses in a weekend. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but we offer more masses than anyone else in the Archdiocese right now. And we are number 9 in terms of growth, even with New Haven right now going through their own merger. That will probably bump them to the number 1 spot, which still keeps us in the top 10. Father, for reference, how many parishes do we have here in the Archdiocese?
133 parishes.
133 parishes. We're in the top 10 in terms of size and growth. Now, also according to the Archdiocese, and these numbers get a little into the weeds, but I found them interesting, right? So the Archdiocese has their own way of estimating sort of the percentage of how many people they think we could be reaching, how many, let's call them potential Catholics in any given area. And for average is about 18%. It says Manchester, according to their data, and again, you can go on the Archdiocese website, you can look into this kind of stuff or how they get these numbers, but they said that we're reaching about 11%, right? So we have a huge pool that we are continuing to grow from right now. And we're still one of the biggest parishes in the entire Archdiocese, which is fantastic news, right? And we are continuing to grow year over year. We've been showing steady growth. And again, I don't want to extrapolate, but early growth from this year says we are, 50 to 100% more in terms of how many people are coming.
Yeah, can you tell us, because the first 2 months, how many families they signed up?
Absolutely. So we had, I believe it was 26 new registered families just within the first 2 months of the year, which represents, so that's just families as a whole, by the way. That actually represents 40 individuals, not including children. And as you know, like in our one of our focuses recently, if you've been to the 10 a.m. or the 5 p.m. masses or attended the recent school mass that we had, we've been doing a lot of focus on young families and attracting youth. And so that doesn't include the children who have registered. That is just adults and adult families. That's 40 individuals, 26 families.
Yeah, you are talking about that youth participation. Can you share a little bit more, again, numbers and what we do with those, those who are the future of the church?
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's the other part of it, right? A significant portion of our population is older, and it's not going to sustain the church's continued growth. For that, you need to look at families. And I mean, we've had enough people come up to us after a mass and go, "Oh, I love seeing the kids here." So we've been focusing on that. We've been focusing on a new version of religious education and our new religious education programs. So to speak to numbers, right? So we had pre-COVID, this is the 2019-2020 year, we had 216 registered individuals for the religious education program. Now that's K through 8. And then during COVID, obviously nobody was around, that fell to 124. Really good news for us, right? Immediately post-COVID, we were 213. Immediately right back to where we had been pre-COVID. The year after that, 2022 to 2023, 280 registered individuals. Now, some of those were sacrament prep coming back, but even excluding the ones who were sacrament prep that missed due to the previous year, that shows we actually get numbers that show significant growth immediately post-COVID in that 2022, 2023 growth period. This year, so we had a registration system change, which changed the numbers a little bit, but even with that registration system change, we have 261 new families, or new registrations. We have 261 registrations for a religious education program, which means we are seeing faster growth in the youth population, but steady growth in the youth population. Like I sort of mentioned, we have, so here in Manchester, we have the largest elementary school, Catholic elementary school system in the state.
Yeah, we have over 600 students.
Over 600 students. Now, that's not counting our relationship with East Catholic or anything. That is just the St. Bridget, St. James schools here, the Consortium of Education here in Manchester. We have the largest student population. And what we found, partly because we have families from 16 or 18 towns around the area that come and bring their students here to our education system, that we have families who are looking for education in our parish who haven't connected with the school yet, and we have families in the school who haven't connected. So before COVID, a thing that we did, a really nice tradition that all the churches here in town, all the parishes here in town were sort of doing, was connecting our schools with, well, I guess not, it's St. James and St. Bridget, were connecting with their students. They had a student mass where students were greeters, students were readers, they brought the offertory. So this year, for the first time since COVID, we brought it back. And we had great numbers of all of our students. It was really vibrant, really lively to see. And that's a way for us to continue sort of programmatically connecting our young families with our education system and our education system with our young families here in the parish, because that's really what a lot is about. We also, not just for young families, right? A lot of people, I don't know if you know teenagers at home or have teenagers at home, there's sort of this idea that they're disaffected, that they're not interested in what's going on. And it's been our experience that if you connect with them where they are, hit them where they're interested, they absolutely want to feel like they're making a difference. So we've been expanding our volunteer opportunities. I actually want to shout out to some of my teen and high school volunteers. For those of you who watch the 10 a.m. mass broadcast or the 5 p.m. mass broadcast, I often have teen volunteers who come in and work the machines with me, because a lot of kids, I mean, it is reality, right? A lot of kids are interested in phones, streaming. So, well, how do we connect that to the church? Well, we have an app, we have our streaming process. So you get to allow the kids to have hands-on, get them engaged and involved in the church.
Yeah, our intention is, that the Mass is the center of everything what we do. And we want to invite them, and we want to give them the tools what they are using on daily basis to spread the good news of the gospel. And this is very interesting and very growing. And also, we would like to share with you that we have dedicated person on the staff now who will be taking care of, all volunteers ministries and organizing and building them up. We want to have on the staff, the person who everyone can call and be, redirected to the right place to share the good news and serve Jesus and his people in the church. And her name is Kimberly. We will say a little bit more in another video, but we are so grateful.
Very happy that she's here.
We are so blessed as a parish to have this person who will be, organizing our ministries.
And so the purpose of a lot of that, right, is to continue to grow both youth attendance and youth engagement so that the growth that we're seeing right now is sustainable for the next 5, 10, 20, 40 years, right? Like, we're trying to make plans, not even plans for what we might even see, but what the next generation is going to see in the Catholic Church here in Manchester. So that's really good news. Now let's talk maybe a little bit about some of the bad news, right? Not for us, complicated news for us, but bad news across the board. So for those of you who attended the town halls for the naming of the parish, for the town, for the mass schedule, you'll have seen a presentation that we did at the time about the declining number of priests globally, but specifically here in the Archdiocese. So right now, here in our Archdiocese, the average age of priests is 62. We are extremely lucky here in Manchester to have 2 younger priests, although, again, they might not be forever.
Yes. And here I would like to say those numbers, that average age of the priests in the United States is the same. We are the part of the United States. Is 62.
Yep.
And in our Archdiocese, we have 115 priests ordained for our Archdiocese, active priests. We have few priests who are external priests, who are, from different communities, or they came here for some contract. And then we have retired priests. Mm-hmm. But we will be focusing on this number 115, because this is priests who are here in our Archdiocese, ordained for our Archdiocese, and more likely they will be here. They won't leave or something, but they will be here. This is the number, 115
exactly.
Active priests, full-time active priests in our Archdiocese, those who are incarnated to our Archdiocese.
So some people who are at home paying a little attention might have found the number 115 alarming, considering earlier you said there were only 133 parishes. So we already don't have enough full-time ordained priests here in the Archdiocese to cover all the parishes that we have. We just don't. Did a little bit of number crunching here, right? So in order to maintain this level, which again, already doesn't cover everything, but just for maintenance, we would have to ordain 18.
Yeah, around 18.
Around 18 priests per year, right? The current number is 2, sometimes 0. And that's assuming everybody who's in seminary goes through. The projections into the future, and for the last few years, generally we've been getting out 2 to 0.
Yeah, and we would like to say here that Father Federico is doing tremendous job, trying, to set this up for the future. But again, as we are looking for 2030, this is, our numbers and where we are, and, what we need to address. This rebuilding will take, years to come, because, to ordain the priest, you need 8 years of education.
As Father Jaime works with the vocations office, and I was talking to him, and he had said, basically, where are the next generation of priests to deal with this going to come from? They're going to come from, the kids who are in the pews now, which is part of the reason why we're focusing on families, right? But you're right. That is not something that we will, see the fruits of our labor for decades to come. So for right now, focusing up into 2030, we are not at scale for priests. And the rate of loss, those of you who were at those town halls will remember us sort of projecting a rate of loss into the future. It is unfortunately more than expected.
Yeah, and in our parish also, like in our case, we have 2 full-time priests and we have Father Ed, who we are grateful for,
Absolutely.
Who is helping us in the parish. In this way, this is when I came to Manchester in 2009, we had 11 priests, and now that two priests full-time and Father Ed, who is helping us, we need to do the same work. It's not sustainable as of today.
So to that point, right, under the current reality of the Archdiocese, Father was kind enough to share some missives from the Archdiocese with me. And so as they mentioned, according to statements and according to the Archdiocese, right? I would rather specifically quote these, right? Under the current leadership of the Archdiocese, all parishes are going to be expected to cut back on the number of masses. That's a direct statement from the Archbishop's office. And I sort of wanted to...
I would like to
please.
be clear. This is I shared with Rob. This is, the letter to priests from Archbishop Blair and Archbishop Coyne.
Exactly.
Both archbishops.
It's from the Archdiocesan office. And it said, right... one, he said, larger parishes who have 2 or more priests, like I said, we're in the top 10. He's talking directly to us, right? This statement is basically about us. Quote, may not have them forever. It's a generous way to put that. Also, per the statement, too many masses undermines good liturgy, creates a logistical and financial burden on parishes, takes a toll on the physical and spiritual health of the priest, and does not allow priests to form good relationships with their parishioners. So I know a lot of you, we've talked, I have fond memories here in town from my childhood of just getting to interact with the priests afterwards. Right now, so I didn't buckle down this deep on the numbers to get how much mileage you guys are putting in. We have overlapping mass times right now. Priests spend a lot of time zipping around to all 4 of our church locations across town. We've been extremely lucky so far that there has not been a crisis yet where a priest just cannot show up to mass. I say that we're lucky because this was shocking to me. We need a contract for outside help from those priests that Father was talking about earlier, twice a month. Basically every other weekend, we need outside help. And the Archdiocese office also said, oh, hey, by the way, that outside help is already putting a strain on senior leadership, and it's going to be less reliable in the future because of the declining number of priests. And actually, around the holidays, it's going to double up. It's going to be more difficult to find people around the holidays. So there's sort of a lot we can talk about here, but the base conclusion that we draw, right, and the base conclusion, sort of the only conclusion to draw based on the number of masses that we're doing right now, the fact that we have to plan per the Archdiocese for a scenario where instead of that 11 from 2009, we have 1 priest here in town, and a future where, 1 priest has to cover the entire parish, instead of spending time driving around town. Because, by the way, all these numbers don't even, this doesn't even include all the other, besides just the business leadership things of running the parish, time spent at hospitals, time spent in our schools, again, of which we have the largest population in the state, house calls, visitations to the sick, sacraments, funerals, weddings. This is just basic duties. It's not sustainable. It is an untenable relationship between just the priests, the parish, and the nature of time. So we really have to get a focus in on a sustainable schedule for the priests, and we have to prepare now for a future in the next year to 5 years where we only have one priest here in town. Not great news, right? Not great news for us as a parish, but it is news that is impacting every parish across the country right now, and specifically every parish here in the Archdiocese.
Yeah, and adding here, we're so blessed that we have, the small groups, and we have Christ Life, that we are building up and we are preparing some lay leaders,
Yeah.
A lot of stuff will need to be done by lay leaders, of course not sacraments, not, but a lot of things we'll have to redirect and, to learn as a parish how to serve the best Jesus. Because again, like Rob said, our attendance, our church is growing, but, those who can celebrate, sacraments, declining.
So it's a unique problem for us to have, because the demands on priest time, the demands on the parish are growing as we grow as a parish. Like, what's the alternative? We just stop growing, stop trying to reach out to, people who are interested in being in the church? Absolutely not. Just as a weird second note, and people might not find this interesting, but I found this really interesting, right? So according to the Second Vatican Council, I went real deep into some of the research on this one. So I'm just going to quote the Second Vatican Council here. The good of the parish community should be kept in mind, and the number of masses should not be so multiplied as to weaken the effectiveness of the pastoral effort, which obviously goes directly into what the pastor, what the priests, and how many we have can do. I also didn't know that technically canon law says that you're only supposed to celebrate the Eucharist once a day. Not a thing that I knew. I've been a Catholic for 40 years. I had no idea. Now, obviously, there's like a little asterisk next to that right now in the modern church that says it's not possible, but like crazy. Anyways, that has nothing to do with the numbers, just some stuff that I found really interesting when I was doing the research on this. So, we are a growing parish. We are losing priests. The only solution here, right, the only tenable solution really is to sort of go back to a traditional one church, one parish, right? Like, that is kind of the only way to do this in any way that's going to preserve even a sliver of Catholic tradition, really. So, let's talk about our buildings. Couple of things. Our buildings are historical, and through this whole process, we've been looking at the historical value of the buildings and all of that. But I just want to talk about sort of logistical, because you asked me to do numbers. Currently, we spend about 25% of the parish's budget on maintaining all the buildings in town. And that's just, by the way, maintenance. That's like keeping the lights on and making sure that they're reasonably clean.
Yeah, nothing extra, only the minimum.
Just the baseline stuff. That doesn't include the fact that we had to very recently replace some roofs where there's boilers issue. Like, there's all sorts. We have old properties, and there are. I mean, I bought a historic home myself, and there's a whole. Anybody who has an older home kind of understands that. So. The number of masses also creates a financial cost to Paris. Like, this gets to be a little weird in the weeds. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but we do have to furnish multiple locations. One example, again, this is sort of stuck out as interest to me. Talking about the Paschal candles, right? Each Paschal candle is a couple $100. It's roughly. We have to maintain 4 because we have 4 church locations. Doesn't seem like that big deal, but that racks up to about $1,000. Couple $1,000 depending on where you're going and what you're doing. Look at, and that's just like one little furnishing thing. Very quickly that adds up to thousands of dollars across 4 different locations outside, right? And again, roof repair and all sorts of other stuff. Some of things are grandfathered in, but like looking at different properties, if we wanted to like do anything with them, expand on them, add on to them, it would be wildly cost prohibitive because of the nature of the buildings, the age of the buildings, the fact that some of them are currently grandfathered for some issues, but if you add on to them, that grandfathering goes away, you have to address them. It becomes like a whole thing, right? So I just wanted to look at what our current needs are and what our current footprint is. So I'm going to use I'm going to use an example here of, I'm going to use St. James as an example. I looked at all the properties, obviously, but St. James has the highest capacity, right, of 550 individuals.
Yes, and here we need to know to
This is, I got real deep in the weeds on this one.
Yes, 550 means that the seat in the pew is, for one person between 16 to 17 inches.
I had no idea, by the way, that capacity when you have pews rather than like stadium seating and chairs was counted, like measured like that. So max capacity at St. James Church, which is our largest, has our largest capacity. The others have 400, 300. St. James has 550. So to Father's point there, right? They have this thing called, which I didn't know about, sort of like the industry standard of what let's call comfortable capacity counts as, right?
This is, to give you example, the seat in the airplane is between 36 to 34 to 37.
Yes, 24 to 30, somewhere right there.
Yes, and
six. I don't know about you, but I'm not 16 inches and calling it for me. So for when they're measuring out for pews, right? That's nobody wants to be crammed in. So that puts us at 75% is generally accepted, I guess, as the standard for comfortable capacity. So you look at 75% capacity so that people can sit in the pews comfortably. So that puts us down to about 412, 413 as a comfortable capacity. So what we would count that as if you go to St. James and, the pews are full and you walked in and it's packed house, but nobody's standing room only and crushing their shoulders together. It's about 413 people. Which, by the way, there's a whole other side of math to this about ADA compliance and, mobility-assisted seating and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to focus on the general numbers right now.
Again, I would like to be clear that we are using as an example.
Oh, this is just an example. Yes.
The biggest.
I'm using St. James as an example specifically because it has the largest. So if any size things that we do in terms of seating are just exacerbated in every other location, right? So this is just terms of seating. So right now, we have, like I said before, on an average weekend, we have 15 to 1,600 people. Let's call it about 1,600 people, right? That puts us right at capacity under a certain set of circumstances. So right now we have 8 masses every weekend. But again, let's just for quick math, this is not an actual plan, but this is just the quick math that I did to help me to sort of grapple with these numbers. Let's say we're losing priest. Let's say we cut down to a term where we have 1 priest, right? 2 to 1, obviously we have more than 2 right now, but let's just sort of bare bones it, easy math. 2 down to 1, let's cut 8 down to 4. Still outside what the Vatican wants us to do, but let's just say that that's what we're doing. So 1,600 divided by 4, it's 400. So we're right at capacity. Seems like St. James can totally easily hold things, with a couple exceptions. One, like I said before, we are growing here in the parish. So that puts us right at capacity now, at this moment, meaning if no one else joins the parish, we can handle it and it's comfortable. Gives us no further room for growth at all. 2, our masses, anybody who has attended Easter Mass, anybody who was at the Vigil or Easter Sunday Mass, anybody at Christmas Eve or Christmas Mass.
Easter Sunday, the 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock Mass, they had close to 1,200 people.
Yeah. So our mass sizes can swell, this is looking at sort of our internal head counts, can swell anywhere from 50 to 100% during the holidays. There's the whole stereotype of the Christmas Catholic or whatever, but it's true. On Christmas and Easter, and not just Christmas and Easter, Good Friday was a lot of them, but let's just use the big ones as examples here again. Swells anywhere from 50 to 100%, which means, according to these numbers, there is not a single location that can manage that population at all comfortably, let alone a growing population.
The church location.
Church location, yes. Yeah. And again, sort of like I said before, I love, by the way, their Christmas. We're celebrating in all 4 places at once. It gives this really great sense of community. And I know we've talked about it. That's not going to be feasible pretty soon in the next few years, just because there won't be the priests for it. And the Archdiocese said outside help is going to be harder to find at that point. So we're in this really unique position here in Manchester. St. Teresa of Calcutta Parish is growing. We are growing in defiance of national and international trends, which is incredible news. It tells us that what we're doing here, focusing on families, the different masses, our weekend experience and homily series, our small groups, Christ Life, everything that we are doing here to grow the Catholic faith, to focus on Jesus here in our parish is working, and it's growing. And when we first started this journey, I mean, you were the one who said we're not going to see any change for 3 to 5 years, and we're already seeing, I guess it's been about 3 years, so never mind, I'll take that back. 3 to 5 years, we're already seeing significant growth, and we are seeing trends that suggest we are going to continue to grow higher and higher here in Manchester. Unfortunately, we're facing a reality with our priests where the only thing that we can do to maintain an environment of Catholic faith and community here in Manchester, here at St. Teresa of Calcutta Parish, is to boil down to one. We can build that sense of community. Now, this isn't even getting into the anecdotal stuff of, like you can't, people living under separate roofs, they're not a fan. We're just focusing on the numbers here, and focusing on the numbers, we're going to have to, for financial reasons and community reasons, we're going to have to look at one location. And then it puts us in the position where none of the locations are currently suitable for our needs. They're not big enough. So that's sort of the reality we're facing. That's why we looking to outside judgment, professional judgment. That's
unbiased.
And unbiased judgment. All of us here in Manchester have I'll be totally honest. I grew up at St. Bridget Church. All of my sacraments went there. I went to the school. I have in my heart places that I love. All of us feel that way. Every single one of us is connected in some way, or even just has the perception that they're connected in some way. And so we wanted to go out of our way, which is why, when did we start the process for contracting out?
Almost a year.
And spent a long time, because they worked on it for a long time. And the process to find urban architects, an architecture firm, they happen to be out of New York City, that would work for exactly what we need and had an unbiased view of where we're at, to just do a feasibility study about, okay, where are we at? What are we doing? Way more in depth into the buildings and the architecture than I got.
Yes. But can you explain what does it mean, the feasibility study?
Feasibility study, right.
What does it mean that this is not, that ready-to-go project? But
not at all. Yeah. This is not like hiring an architecture firm to build us a blueprint. No. So a feasibility study is, and the reason we went this way is, we sort of knew, even before I went deep into these numbers, we sort of knew the future of the parish. We sort of saw the writing on the wall. Those of you, again, who were at the town halls a few years ago know we were talking about it then. So we knew where we were going, but we didn't know where to start in a lot of ways, and how to get an unbiased look of what our properties are, what are the size needs of a parish that is growing like ours, what is our projected, how do you plan for growth beyond what your expectations are, right? So we could sit down and go, well, we'd love to have a church. It's 2,000 people, but what's feasible? What is within a reasonable budget? What do our properties have? What are the challenges facing our properties? If you had a general sort of concept or idea of how big you would want to get, what our needs would be, does anywhere fit? What works? What are some of the, looking at just the general, what is the plan? What do we have? What are our challenges? Looking at all of the properties that we have here in town. I'm not an architect. You're not an architect. So we wanted expert help. We wanted someone to look at us from an objective outside view and go, all right, here's where you're at.
Yeah, and other thing what I would like to touch here, that we recognize that we are attached to, to buildings, like you said, that,
Yeah.
your, growth was, with one of our sites, St. Bridget's site, but we recognize this and we know that a lot of important moments of your life, they were happening in our churches, in our schools. We recognize this, but we have to look, for the reality, for the future to set for the growth, not for, for dying, and also set, this church for, these kids, for our kids, because they will be the one who they will be seeing, why we did this.
Exactly. Yeah.
For us, it's, very hard, but those kids, they will be seeing and they won't remember, those things from the back, from the history. Of course, we will bring this history. We will be teaching the history, but we are setting, that they will have the church. They will have the place, what will be, up to date for today's needs.
Exactly. And still focused on that message, that mission, that, even if it's not the specific place, that sense of community that we had and the focus on Jesus' message. So that's why we contracted out. We were very lucky to find urban architects who have a big stake in where we're going. They're very interested in working with us. But they met all of our needs.
Yeah, what was very interesting that Rabenar, the one who is the principal
yes.
of this,
yeah.
was born in Calcutta, India, and he was born there during the time of Mother Teresa, and he met her. And this is very powerful, like that Holy Spirit is, bringing us, in these paths that, that I strongly believe that Jesus is into this, and we are together, walking with him to this stronger church, the church, what he envisioned, to go out and to proclaim the good, news of the gospel. I think that we talked, a lot.
And every time I am in front of anybody, I talk a lot. So that's
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
But Rob, I would like you to talk a little bit more, and let's conclude this, this video with prayer. And I would like that you will lead us in the prayer.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, as we continue to make progress and look to fulfilling your mission for us here in Manchester and throughout the world, let us be guided by you with open hearts, with open minds, to hear your message, to allow us to fulfill your vision here and abroad, in our hearts and in our town. Amen.
Amen. And Father,
The Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.